Hello students, this is my second video on planning. In my previous video, I have covered meaning of planning, features, objective and importance of planning. In today's video, I am going to explain you the principles of planning, types and process of planning. Now let's see principles of planning. We all know for making the planning effective, we should follow some principles because principles provide the basis for sound planning. So, first one is principle of contribution to objectives. Realization of organizational goals greatly depend upon effective planning. Long-term plans should be interwoven with medium-term plans and which in turns should be interrelated with short-term plans in order to attain organizational objectives more effectively and economically. The second one is principles of objectives. The objectives of the organization should be clear and attainable. There should be no ambiguity and planning is undertaken to achieve the objectives. Now let's see the third principle is principle of primacy of planning. It is the first and foremost function of management. It must be effectively done so that other functions of management also contribute to the overall organizational goals. Next one is principle of efficiency of plans. Plan must be efficient in their contribution to objectives because you all know efficient means cost effective. The next one is principles of planning premises. Since planning is based on forecast, clear planning premises lead to efficient planning process. As you all know, planning premises are assumptions or forecasts about future on which plans are based. Next, principle of strategy and policy framework. Strategies and policies helps to attain organizational objectives. Clear policies and strategies lead to clear and effective plans. Principle of limiting factors. Planning must take into consideration different limiting factors like manpower, money, machines, materials and markets. Objectives can be achieved by concentrating on them. Next one is principle of commitment. Plans should cover a time span that allows managers to fulfill their commitment to the decisions. Next one is principles of flexibility. Planning relates to future and we all know future is uncertain. So plan must be flexible to adjust to environmental changes. And the last one is principle of navigational change. This principle is closely related to the principle of flexibility. It reviews the plans from time to time and reframes them if the need arises, as the navigator does when the ship is not going in the right direction. These are the principles of planning. Next, now we are going to see the types of planning. First one is corporate planning. The term denotes planning activities for the entire enterprise. Basic focus of corporate planning is to determine the long-term objectives of the organization as a whole. It is generally carried out at the top level of management. Operational planning. It involves the conversion of strategic plans into detailed and specific action plans. It is done at the middle or lower level of management. It is also known as tactical or short-term planning, which cover 1 year or so. It narrates short-term business strategies Any changes in the internal organization or external environment have to be met through the tactical plans. Next one is functional planning. The purpose of functional planning is to promote standardized management practices for corporate function in the department's decentralized corporate management structure. Functional guidance, goal setting, functional assessment are the three basic activities have to be carried out in functional planning. The next type of planning is proactive and reactive planning. Whereas proactive planning is based on the anticipation of the future outcomes and state of affairs that would affect the working of organization. Such planning has to be broad-based, highly flexible and creative by nature. The creative reactive planning is not in the anticipation of the future but becomes active only when the problem is confronted or has already occurred. This is merely the corrective action that is taken. The next one, formal and informal planning. Formal planning is always carried out in the stepwise process and done at a large scale and is based on the logical thinking. Whereas informal planning is usually carried out in very small organization where the formal organization structure may or may not exist. The last one is automated planning. It is the branch of artificial intelligence that concerns the realization of strategies or action sequences. This type of planning is normally found in the technological advanced organization. Now I am going to tell you the different steps of process of planning. There are certain basic steps which must be followed in every steps of planning. When these steps are followed, the planning process becomes systematic. You can see first one is the setting of objectives. The first step in planning is to determine clearly or set the objectives of the business. It is a starting point as everybody in the organization must know as to what is to be achieved in future. Then further we can see planning premises, means constructing planning premises. The second step is to determine the forecast or the assumptions upon which the planning shall be based. If these assumptions are accurate, then planning process will be more useful. The third step is collection, analysis and classification of information. For effective planning, all relevant data should be collected, properly analyzed and then classified. The data so collected should be tabulated to facilitate analysis. All useful data should be included to facilitate analysis and interpretation. The next one is course of action. You can see under this it is divided into three parts. First one is develop alternatives, then evaluate alternatives and then select a plan. And see the develop alternatives. The fourth step of planning is to discover the alternative course of action, that is to develop more than one course of action. After that, each alternative is evaluated in terms of its expected results and benefits. The strong and the weak points of each alternative should be clearly weighed. In order to make evaluation process effective, the useful techniques used include statistical techniques and operational research. Then the next step is to select the best alternative. When the comparative result of different alternatives are tabulated, the alternative which seems to be the best is selected. After that, formation of derivative plans. For achieving the object of master plans, subsidiary or derivative plans are framed. In order to implement the master plan, each departmental head prepares a plan of his departments. Then after that, the next step is planning is to communicate. The plan have planned to every manager in the organization so that they cooperate wholeheartedly in the implementation of plan. It is better to associate all the managers in the planning process so that they develop a sense of participation in the management. And the last one is controlling. The last step in planning is to watch the progress of a plan. With the help of a feedback, its shortcomings and weaknesses are known. So these shortcomings should be corrected without any delay, and all future plans should be made in the light of these pitfalls. So a continuous review of plans helps the management to keep the plans up to date. I am happy to support you all in your learning journey. Thank you.